開會嘅時間到啦，而出。
So, may I now call the meeting to order. Agenda item number 1, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of January. Paper CB 1753/1415. The Secretariat hasn't received any proposals for amendments. So can we confirm the minutes, please? All right. Item 2 on the agenda, information papers issued since the last meeting. Members, please refer to the agenda for the list of papers. Any comments on those papers? No? Item 3 now. Items for discussion at the next meeting. The next meeting will be held on the 26th of May, a Tuesday. Miss Elizabeth Quart, Chairman, in relation to item 2, I want to say that some district councils want us to follow up on certain matters. So are we going to, in the future, have further discussions on those matters of concern to district councils? Are we going to have special meetings? No. There are different timetables for different districts. So what do members think? Chairman, will we include these issues in the list of outstanding items for the panel's discussion? So members, any views on Ms. Quat's suggestion? Mr. Chairman, I agree that these matters be put on the list of outstanding items for discussion. And let's see if the administration will give us some progress reports. Mr. Fernando Zhang, Mr. James Toh, and another member have expressed concern about the resignation of the CEO of the URA. I think the incident is most unusual, and there have been reports about discord between the chairman and the CEO of the URA. So, Chairman, should we have a discussion with the URA as soon as possible concerning the resignation of the CEO and also the way forward for the URA? Mr. Chan Kam Lam. Chairman, I refer to the list of outstanding items for discussion. In June, we're going to discuss the work of the URA. So perhaps we can ask the URA to give us an update. And at that meeting, we can also discuss the future work of the URA. Mr. Ip Kwok Him. I agree, Chairman. This panel should not discuss individual cases. And so I think we can discuss the matter in June when we discuss the work of the URA. I don't think it's appropriate for this panel to have a discussion on the resignation of a particular person. All right, any other views on item 2 on the agenda? No? Then let's deal with Ms. Quat's request in this manner. The URA will meet the panel in June anyway. I understand that the members are concerned about personnel arrangements in the URA and also the future arrangements. And of course, we are also concerned about the work of the URA. No personnel changes are common in all organizations. And so if members are concerned about the recent incident, they can bring up the incident for discussion in June. All right, item 3 on the agenda. Next meeting. The next meeting will be held on the 26th of May, a Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. The administration has proposed 4 items. First of all, PWP item number 259RS, cycle tracks connecting Northwest NT with Northeast NT Tsim to Changshui section remaining. Next, regrading of multidisciplinary directorate posts in the ASD. Next, new measures for the training of skilled workers for the construction industry. And finally, facilitating the redevelopment of buildings under the Civil Servants Cooperative Building Society scheme. In order that members will have sufficient time to discuss the 4 issues, I would suggest that the end time for the next meeting be 6:15 p.m. All right. Item 4 on the agenda now. Kai-Tak development infrastructure works for developments at the southern part of the former runway and progress report on Kai-Tak development. Right, let's invite the administration in. So, I welcome the officials. I will not read out the names of the officials on the attendance list. I understand that the administration is going to give us a PowerPoint presentation. So please be concise because of time constraint. Yes, Chairman, thank you. Good afternoon. We are here today to seek members' views and support to upgrade 711CL to Cat A for the construction of infrastructure works essential for continued developments at the southern part of the former runway at Kai-Tak development. 711CL comprises the widening of an existing road, including Shengcheng Road, Changyup Street, and also Shengfeng Road. And we also need to carry out the ancillary works. For example, the landscape deck and also the noise barriers and also the supporting structures. The estimated cost is about 5,757 million in MOD prices. And we will be updating members on the progress of Kai-Tak development. And today we'll also be giving members updated information. Since 2009, we've got funding support from this council for various projects in the Kai-Tak development. And we are now carrying out these works in phases. And for phase 1, the works were completed in phases in 2013. For the remaining works, they are either being designed or in various stages of construction. And now I would like to invite the CEDD, in fact, Ms. Ying, head of the Kai-Tak office, to give members more information. Ms. Ying. Yes, I'll give members a PowerPoint presentation on the development at Kai-Tak. As Mr. Chow has pointed out, linking Kowloon Bay and the cruise terminal, we have single two-lane carriageway. We have 6 residential sites and 6 commercial sites, and also the tourism node in the at the tip of the runway, or the former runway, and so we need to have a dual 2-lane carriageway.
Mr. Zhang has already given you a rough outline of the works. It can be divided into 2 parts. Widening of Chang Kip Street and Wong Chang Road to the south of the apron, and at Kai Tak Bridge and the tip of the runway, widening works are also needed. And we have to change the alignment of Shing Fung Road and to form a dual 2-lane distributor road. Further developments would generate more traffic, and therefore in the vicinity of Kowloon Bay at 3 junctions we have to carry out improvement works. This is an enlarged diagram of the infrastructure works at the former South Apron area. We need to construct a dual 2-lane distributor road at Shun Fung Road, and at Shing Chang Road and part of Ching Yu Street. We have to construct a supporting underground structure to facilitate future construction of Trunk Road T2, and so that the road will not have to be worked on, and so will not affect the operation of the cruise terminal at the tip of the runway. This is a cross-section of the proposed supporting underground structure. The width is about 37.6 meters, and for the underground supporting structure, it will form part of the supporting structure of road T2, and it has a width of 12.9 meters. Given the site constraint, it is important to build the underground structure now. Now I'd like to turn to infrastructure works at the former runway. Kai Tak Road has to be extended to be a dual 2-lane road, and Shing Fung Road, which is along the harbour front, will have to be diverted to the center of the runway. In addition to a dual 2-lane road, we will also build a single 2-lane branch roads and pedestrian streets. There will be a tunnel here leading to the center of the development. On top of Shing Fung Road, under the latest OZP, an elevated landscape deck about 1.4 kilometers long and 11 meters wide will be built. And at different points of the deck, there will be lifts and also staircases. The landscaped deck is linked to noise barriers to separate the traffic noise from the nearby residential developments. This is a cross-section of the noise barrier and landscape deck. Here is elevated landscaped decker, and the noise barrier will be properly designed. It will be different from what we see usually on two sides of our carriageways. We have a few artists' impression of the design. This will be an open space on our runway. This is along the commercial area. On this side, we don't have any noise barrier. At the side near the residential developments, there will be pleasantly designed noise barrier. We hope that there can be ventilation pathways, so that driving along here will be interesting. This is the bird's eye view of the T-junction. We need a more extensive noise barrier at this point. Now, in Kowloon Bay at Wang Chiu Road, there are 3 existing road junctions that have to be improved. In between Wang Chiu Road and Kai Chung Road, we have to widen the left turning lanes, and at the junction between Wang Chiu Road and Lam Hing Street, we have to widen Wang Chiu Road southbound. And the third junction is between Wang Chiu Road and Shen Yi Road. We have to widen the number of traffic lanes from 2 to 3. So that's what 711CL is about. Subject to members' agreement, we hope to secure funding by the middle of this year for works to start later this year for completion in the 4th quarter of 2019. Now I have 3 slides to show you the Kai Tak development. The first one are projects that have been completed starting from 2013. In the North Apron, we have pumping stations and infrastructure to support the public housing development. And in 2013 and 2014, we have some other facilities already completed. The first berthing space of the cruise terminal was commissioned in 2013. We have widened Cheongip Street and built a fire station. In 2014, we completed the works at Kai Tak, and the park, the phase 1 of the park is already opened to the public. There are a few projects under construction in the northern apron. In the middle or the 3rd quarter of this year, we will see the trade and industry tower completed, 2 second primary schools in the PRH development, and some of the roadworks in Kai Tak Square will also be completed. Then we have facilities to be completed in 2016 that will include the infrastructure works phase 4. T2 Road will be commissioned to facilitate traffic between Kowloon Bay and Kai Tak. The Children's Hospital is under construction. Expected that in 2017 the completion will be completed, and the hospital can be commissioned in phases starting from 2018. And for phase 3A, it will link up Sampo Kong and Kai Tak. Vehicle and pedestrian links will be strengthened. As we all know, the Sha Tin Central Link is being built, and some architectural finds have caused some slippage in the project. The downstream of Kai Tak Nala started works in 2013 for completion in phases in 2018. We want to complete all the infrastructure in Kai Tak by 2021. And we are working on a few projects. For instance, in the North Apron, there is the operational base of the police. And in the eastern part, we have other basic infrastructure works. And now we are securing funding for Kai Tak Park. And Route 6 is being planned. And phase 2 of the Kai Tak Nala, it is now under review. We're applying funding for the infrastructure works at the southern part of the former runway. The Highways Department is working on the Satin to Central Link, and we are also carrying out the detailed design of T2 road. So there's a brief progress of the Kai Tak development. According to ROP 83A, if members have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest on any of the items, please disclose the nature of the interest involved before you speak on that matter. Will members who would like to ask questions raise their hands, please? Mr. Michael Tian, Cham Kam Lam, Lo Wai Kwok, Helena Wong. 4 minutes each. Michael Tian. Thank you. Yes, we all want to see progress at the Kai Tak development. Now we know that there are many components, and a road about 2 kilometers long is proposed. $5.7 billion may seem very expensive for a road 2 kilometers long. Now, I am a layman in traffic matters, but if for a road alone we have to spend $5.7 billion, I really don't know how the money is going to be spent. And then I know that $1.2 billion will be spent on the elevated landscape deck and noise barriers. And also there will also be supporting underground structure for the future trunk road T2. That is $1.7 billion. So 5.7 minus 2.9, there will still be 2.8 billion left. Assuming that there is no T2, if we do not build T2, does that mean that we can say that $1.7 billion for building the underground structure? Which one from the administration? Please be as quick as possible. Is either a yes or no answer? Yes, this $1.7 billion can still be used. No, please get my question clearly. Without T2 road, does that mean that we can at least save $1.7 billion for this project because we don't need the underground structure anymore? Yes. Okay, thank you. The answer is yes. Okay, that's very direct. If we do not build this road, but only T2 is built, does that mean that $1.7 billion have to be spent sooner or later? We have consider the relationship between these programs. Even if T2 road is not to be built, even if we do not widen the road here, the alignment of T2 is in between 2 hospitals. And the hospital, the children's hospital, will be commissioned in around 2018. Can it be more succinct? Because I still have one more question. Now, if this road is not built, and will you still have to spend $1.7 billion for road T2. Is it true that part of the expenses here will pay for the construction cost of the future trunk road T2? You may say so. Okay. After deducting $2.9 billion, only $2.8 billion are left for a 2-kilometer road. That means each kilometer costs you over $1.4 billion. I think your paper is not comprehensive enough. What do you mean by pedestrian streets and also associated branch roads? Anyway, only 2 kilometers of road is left. Is $1.4 billion per kilometer. I'd like to know the unit cost of road construction.
According to our estimate, about $500 million per km. All right, so 500 million per km, but in this case, $1.4 billion per km. So I think you really should give us more information. In the upcoming PWSC meeting, we will give members a detailed breakdown concerning the $5.7 billion. Chairman, I don't know the purpose of discussing the matter in the panel since they are only going to give the details to the PWSC. In fact, we've prepared a slide on the breakdown of the $5.7 billion, about $400 million on the road works, and about $100 million will be on landscaping works. But of course, we have sewage works, drainage works. $2 billion contingency and cost or price adjustment. Is that right? Now I understand. All right, time's up, Mr. Tian. Now, as you have the information in your hands, why haven't you given us the information? I think more information will help members discuss and deliberate upon the project. In fact, we've reflected such concerns to the Development Bureau already. We think more information should be made available for members' reference, and the administration must not provide information only upon request by members. The administration should provide as much information to members as possible. Mr. Chen Kam Lam, now at Exchange Chang Road there will be the underground structure. And I understand that detailed design is going on. I want to know when you are coming for funding approval. Because we have to make sure that the different parts of the project can be carried out smoothly one by one. And then you can see that in fact for Shing Fung Road the works there is going to, the works are going to be very costly. And is it that you're going to use an elevated road, and will that elevated road be above that elevated landscape deck or what? Ms. Ying, I'll answer the second question first concerning the elevated deck. In the OEZP, we've reserved space for an elevated, environmentally friendly transport system. And And of course, for the greening areas on the at the ground level, those can also be used for constructing the environmentally friendly transport system, so that transport system will not be above the elevated deck. T2 will form part of Route 6. So vehicles from Kowloon Tong and Kwun Tong will not have to use existing roads. And so we hope that the construction works of T2 and the construction works of the Central Kowloon route can be coordinated. For the environmentally friendly transport system, when will a decision be made? And why can't that be on the deck? Because if it's not going to be on the deck, you'll have to construct the tracks. And for the deck, I believe there will be staircases as well as lifts. And I think this landscape deck and the proposed environmentally friendly transport system should be integrated. We need to carry out a detailed feasibility study on the transport system. In October last year, we secured support from members to go ahead with the study. We need to carry out the feasibility study to make final decisions on the environmentally friendly transport system. The transport system has to be closely integrated with the surrounding areas in order to greatly enhance accessibility. And one of the things that we're going to take care of in the detailed feasibility study is the connectivity with the deck and the nearby residential and business areas. Mr. Low Wai Kwok, I share the concern of Mr. Chen Kam Lam, Chairman. You're now studying the arrangements for the roads. And this environmentally friendly linkage system or transport system is going to be very important in enhancing accessibility in the area. So I think all these should be studied as a whole. For the SkyTech development, it offers a precious opportunity for residential development, commercial development, and also greening. So I think the development in this area has to be planned as a whole. I think you have not told us before that there will be an elevated landscape deck. We were told that there would be an elevated, environmentally friendly linkage system, possibly a monorail. So I think you should, in your study, look at how best you can make use of the land on the ground level and also this elevated landscape deck. This is going to be an elongated landscape deck, but do you think many people will use this deck because if it's hot, if it rains, then people may not want to go there. I hope that the EFLS can also be put there. And I hope that this elongated deck can link up the various residential and commercial developments in the area. Yes, can you give us more details? Yes, Chairman. During the early stages of planning, we considered whether there could be seamless interface between the monorail and the elevated deck. And in the preliminary study on the EFLS, there were preliminary proposals on the locations of the stations. I want to say that for this deck, the design will be flexible, so that there can be an interface with the future EFLS if it is going to be a monorail. And also, this deck will be able to enhance accessibility within the area. Chairman, if that's the case, how come the EFLS is not shown on the plan? How come you tell us that you're going to incorporate that in your planning only when you are asked by us? We want to know the interface. I think with more information, we can give better suggestions. So why is it that the EFLS is not shown on the plan? Yes, members can perhaps refer to this slide. So the elevator system will be here. And you can see that the columns will be, or the piles will be in this area. Members wanted us to decide on the form of the EFLS. And even if we decide that the EFLS should be on the ground floor, we will have space available on the at the ground level. Chairman, how come we are shown a new slide every time we ask a question? Why is it that the slides were not all shown to us? And I think there should be integrated planning. Time's up. I think it's very unsatisfactory because the administration provides the information only upon the request of members, or only when the administration is asked questions by members. Ms. Helena Wong. I think this development concept is based on vehicles. So you can see that pedestrians walk on the two sides or on the elevated deck. So this design is not pedestrian based. It's vehicle or driver based. In West Kowloon, there are many highways, and these highways tend to cut up the district. So can the Shing Fung Road be sunken? No, and now you have this elevated deck. Those on wheelchair, elderly citizens will have a lot of difficulties crossing the road. In fact, you should encourage people to walk along the seaside. Look at the Shingmun River. People like to take a stroll along the river after the smell problem has been resolved. So can you consider another model? Can you sink Shingfeng Road underground? I don't prefer a design with so many elevated roads and walkways. So can your design be more people-based? Yes, Chairman. In the high-tech development, there will be the district cooling system. And a lot of pipes have to be laid underground. And then under Shingfeng Road, there are a lot of DCS pipes. And beneath Kai-Tak Bridge, there is a big cooling plant. So there is really no room to sink Shingfeng Road underground.
So under Shingfeng Road, there are too many pipes. Yes, in addition to pipes from the cooling system, there are also sewers and water mains. So the space is entirely taken up. The major cooling plant of the district cooling system is already completed, and some of the pipes serving Kai-Tak already laid. So it's utterly impossible for Shingfeng Road to be sunken. Is that right? Ms. Ying? It has to be very deep underground, and it's impossible to connect with other roads. Chairman, we don't have the cross-sectional plans with us, and we don't know how the pipes are underground. This is a very bad design. So this design has given all the priority to vehicles. This is a very bad design. People have to go up and down in order to cross that road. Can we be given the plans, please? Yes. Can that be done? We're told that some of the underground facilities are already completed, some are in the pipeline, and these are constraints for the alignment of the road. We don't have sufficient information from members to be satisfied. So can you provide such plans, please? Mr. Chow? Okay. And Mr. Albert Chen? Kai-Tak development was planned right from the late 1990s. I think very few people here remember what's the original planning intention. So I think the administration has to explain to us in greater details the original planning intent of Kai-Tak. When Gordon Siu was the responsible officer, I think Kai-Tak was planned as a green city. And one important concept is segregation of pedestrians and vehicles, so the people will not be subject to the vehicle emissions. So some members criticize why are people and traffic entirely separated, because in the late 90s the planning concept was confirmed, and the use of seawater in the district cooling system was also innovative. So there are a number of things unique to Kai-Tak. I'm afraid the administration has to include more background information in the future to facilitate members' understanding. I am very concerned about the high construction cost. According to 2A1, realignment of Shingfeng Road, whenever there is any adjustment, the costs are going to be exorbitant. In the late 1990s, the alignment of the major trunk roads were decided. So for 2A1 realignment, because there is very little in the paper to explain why there is the need for this realignment. Yes, there's some information here saying that due to development needs and also the need for commercial sites, we have this realignment. But I'm not too sure about what the realignment is. And can you tell us the extra cost as a result? Yes, administration. Why we have to realign Shing Feng Road to from the waterfront to the center of the runway, because in the early stage, to cater for the commissioning of the cruise terminal in 2013, in 2009 we applied for funding for road works of Shing Feng Road. However, in the funding application process, some members raised a matter of concern of members of the public. If the road is at the waterfront, it would jeopardize the public's enjoyment of the sea view. So in response to aspirations of the public, we've decided to change the alignment of Shing Feng Road. And we went through 7 rounds of public consultation as far as the draft OEZP was concerned. And in 2012, the present OEZP was endorsed for moving Shing Feng Road from the waterfront to the center. Back then, the construction cost was estimated to be $65 million. And we spent more than 6 years on that. So for this $5.7 billion, how much was it? How much was due to this realignment? Because the estimated cost here is $5.7 billion. Can you tell us the extent of increase due to this realignment? We've compared the construction cost back then and the construction cost now. The unit costs are still comparable. So for construction of this road, it would still be around $65 million. No, I'm asking for the extra expenses as a result of this realignment. Is it minor or quite substantial? Minor. Because Shing Feng Road is a dual 2-lane branch road. In future, it will be extended. It will be widened to almost double of its width. Dr. Fernando Zhang, we're always concerned that we have not entirely maximized the potential of Kai-Tak development to address the community's housing needs. The Kai-Tak development has over 300 hectares, but only about 1/10 of the land is for housing. And the majority of the land here is for private housing and mainly luxury flats. Now this plan is quite clear. Those marked C are commercial sites. So I believe they will be either hotels or commercial buildings. R are luxury flats, low density private housing. We will spend over $5 billion here, and this will be the backyard of the hotels and luxury flats. And the distribution, of course, is also hard to understand. And Mr. Michael Tian found out that the $1.7 billion spent on that supporting underground structure is for the future trunk road T2. I think this cost, these expenses should be subsumed under the construction cost of trunk road T2, because if trunk road T2 is not built, then this underground structure is not needed at all. Is it because trunk road T2 is too expensive? The administration has decided to allow this project to cover part of the bill, and the two extra plans showed us that about $2 billion was for contingency. $2 billion out of $5.7 billion, over 1/3 of the expected costs for contingency or budget overrun. This is really hard to understand. This is baffling. Can you tell us why you need to set aside $2 billion for contingency? For others, and contingencies include breakdown of items. Now, it's not that we have anything to hide. We just want to be more succinct, because when we go to the PWSC, we still have to provide such information. All right, contingency will be spent on environment mitigation measures to ensure that noise and air pollution will not affect the surroundings. We also have to do an audit plan, and we need to have we have to pay for site staff, and we have to pay for management, contract management. So the contingency is not really that much. That $1.1 billion is for price adjustment, because all of the prices here were prices at November 2011. So to cater for money of today prices, we have set aside $1.1 billion for that. Well, I think this is far too high. You should have given us all the paper at the panel stage. There is no need to wait until the PWSC. Mr. KK Fung. Annex 2. So development will focus at the northern part, that is the part near Kwun Tong. At the FC meeting, I asked the FS a question: how road T2, T3 will be developed. We're told that Project 701CL will only be completed in 2017. By then, people don't have to go through the east of Prince Edward East. They can go from To Kwa Wan to Kwun Tong directly. So people don't have to suffer any congestion. And with the construction of T3, people can turn right to the runway from To Kwa Wan. So these are more expeditious ways. Right now, the traffic is very congested. Prior to 2016-17, can you have pedestrian links so as to divert the traffic? T2 Road is the purplish red on the map. It will be completed by end 2016, so that both vehicles and pedestrians will find it more convenient to go between To Kwa Wan and Kai Tak. Regarding D3, Road D3, it will link up with this DV road to the tip of the runway. This is subject to the recommendation of phase 2 of Kai Tak Nala. It is proposed that a 600-meter gap be opened here to resolve the water quality issue. We have completed phase 1 of the Kai Tak Nala. We are reviewing the project and will decide whether 600-meter outlet is needed. Can we narrow it, or can we use an alternative solution? In other words, whether D3 is to be constructed will depend on the review outcome of the 600-meter gap proposal. And we do understand that it is undesirable to rely on Kowloon Bay alone. So we'll complete the review as soon as possible so that D3 road can be commissioned as soon as possible. It is useless for you to repeat the facts which are already known to me once again. I'm asking whether there can be a temporary access so that if a temporary road can be provided within a couple of months, that will ease traffic so much here.
Let me supplement. For the northern part or the north apron, a lot of the area is for the SCL works, and we also need works area for the Kai Tak Nala. And so for the northern apron, most of it is in fact a construction site. There are a lot of heavy vehicles there. And if we are to provide a temporary road, that will have an impact on the progress of the works. Lower left-hand corner, the red line. In fact, I've driven past there a few times. Can you provide a temporary access? Now, if you ask me, I don't think there are such a lot of difficulties. For the SCL, a lot of debris are transported away by barges. In fact, many have suggested that there should be a temporary access. We have considered the suggestion, but we think it would be very difficult. Mr. Chen Kim-po. Yes, Chairman. I want to talk about the landscape deck and the noise barriers, as they will cost over $1 billion. We are rightly concerned. I understand that you do have your reasons, and I wonder if you will be showing us some more new slides after I've asked my questions. As like other members, I'm concerned as to whether that represents value for money. Why is it that there are only noise barriers facing the residential developments? What about the business development, and will the noise reflect back to the residential area? And as many people will be on the landscape deck, will there be a very serious noise problem? Chairman, in fact, the elevated landscape deck serves two purposes. First, according to the EIA report, we need to provide buffers or noise barriers for the residents. But then for the commercial area and the commercial users, those are not noise-sensitive receivers, and so noise barriers are not necessary. So we will have to act in accordance with the EIA ordinance, and also in accordance with the conditions and the environmental permit. And for this landscape deck, it's public open space in the OEZP. So this is open space for public enjoyment. So when it was decided the Shing Feng Road should be moved to the middle, it was proposed that there would be public open space at an elevated level for the enjoyment of the residents in the area and also the public at large. People found the idea of an elevated deck attractive, but they know that it would cost over $1 billion. If they had known, would they have thought otherwise? And for this elevated deck, there will be noise on one side. Is it worth the while providing this deck? Yes, Chairman. Concerning whether this deck is too costly, we've looked at other footbridge works. In fact, this design is like that of a footbridge, and so when we look at the cost of the deck and cost of the noise barriers, in fact, they are not excessively expensive. But then because of the length, 1.4 km, members may think it's very costly. But then if we look at the unit cost, in fact, it's comparable with the unit cost of other footbridge works. So can you tell us the cost if noise barriers are to be provided on the other side as well? But according to the environmental permit, there is no need for us to provide noise barriers for the commercial area. But then if we are to provide noise barriers on the other side, then it will be like a tunnel. It's going to be very dark. We hope that there can be more light penetration. And we hope that for people on the deck and below the deck, they can enjoy a very spacious environment. In fact, previously we did consider the idea of a very wide deck covering the entire road. We in fact did present the design to the district council, and the district council favored this option because we could provide a spacious environment for those on the deck and below the deck. Mr. Chen is concerned about the experience of users on the deck because there are noise barriers on one side but not on the other side. Mr. Paul Chair. Para 7, Chairman. In Wong Tai Sin, there isn't a general hospital, and so it was said that there would be a bypass linking the hospital or the new Echo Hospital in Kai Tak to Wong Tai Sin. And I want to know whether this is going to happen. And second, the deck, the elevated deck, 1.4 km long. I want to refer to slide number 7. How can people have access to this deck? Is it really appropriate to use this amount of money to construct an elevated deck at this point in time? Of course, we're not experts. We may not be familiar with the concept put forward some time ago. We are not too familiar with the content of the OEZP and the environmental permit. But do we really need this elevated deck? In fact, we've been asking for a temporary footbridge linking Kai Tak with Kwun Tong. We think this is more urgent. In fact, at the moment, the utilization rate of the runway park is very low. So is it really necessary to have this deck at this stage? I don't know whether my questions show that I really don't know the concept, but I really want more information from you. So you can see that the red dots are the access points. There are staircases, and there will be connectivity with the cruise terminal, the metro park, and the tourism node. And people can walk from the business area to this elevated deck. We hope that construction works can start this year. Now, in fact, we hope to launch the first commercial site towards the end of this year. So starting from the end of this year, we will in phases launch the various commercial sites and residential sites. And for the tourism node, or development will start in the coming few years. And so there will be more people in this area. And then how people can get to the hospital from Mong Tsim. You can see that here. There or you can see a tunnel from San Po Kong to Kai Tak. And there's no need for vehicles to use the existing roads in Kowloon Bay to reach the hospital in Kai Tak. Mr. Kwok Him, I, like Mr. Po Chair, am not very familiar with this area. I want to first of all ask about the elevated landscape deck. Is it really necessary to provide this deck? Para 6 says that the 1.4 km will provide a walkway connecting the metro park and the cruise terminal. But is there any incentive for pedestrians to use this elevated deck? Is this deck really needed? And then 2A3 pedestrian streets with a total length of 0.4 km. Where are they going to be? Why are they needed? And are they like pedestrian streets in the mainland? Who can give an answer, Ms. Ying? Yes, Chairman. As Mr. Albert Chan has pointed out, we have adopted a more innovative planning concept for the Kai Tak area. And out of the 330 hectares of land, 1/3 will be green. So we hope to provide a green node in the heart of the urban area. The runway gives Hong Kong people a lot of fond memories of the past. And so we hope to retain the runway ambience in this area. And then pedestrian streets, they serve two purposes. First, they serve as ventilation corridors. Now these are the pedestrian streets as shown on this slide. They are wide, 10 meters, and they can link up the promenades. So for the promenades on both sides and also the elevated deck, there will be many access and connection points so that people can walk to the promenade or walk up the elevated deck from the pedestrian streets. Pedestrian streets also serve as ventilation corridors. So there are a few sections of pedestrian streets, right? Yes. There are two here serving as ventilation corridors or breezeways, and then we have one here, and one here. And this short strip is also a pedestrian street. So in fact, these are only pedestrian walkways. But then there will be a lot of greening. So the environment is going to be very pleasant, and we're going to plant trees and shrubs on the pedestrian streets. So you're going to recreate the ambience of a runway, and there will be ample greening. But what, according to your estimate, will the utilization rate of the deck be? Do you think there are incentives for people to go up the deck? For the Kai Tak development, there is another important concept, and that is vibrancy. So you can see that there is a commercial area on one side and also a residential area on the other side, and then there will be a tourism node and also the cruise terminal, and there will be different activities going on at the same time. The metro park will be very large, and there will also be open space at the tip of the runway for large-scale activities. And for the deck, it's going to be a leisure walkway. And so it won't be very vibrant throughout the Kai Tak development, and there will also be tranquil areas.
As regards the expected number of pedestrians to this place, well, we have not done such an estimate. Of course, I share members' concerns as to the functions and construction costs of the elevated landscape deck. The administration has given us some answers, but since it is so expensive, we need information on the deck, and I believe we haven't been given sufficient information. And on the two sides, there will be developments in the future. On the one hand, on one side, we have residential developments, and on the other side, office towers. And there seems to be no linkage with the elevated landscaped deck. The landscaped deck may be linked to the elevated, will be elevated, and then pedestrian and vehicular traffic will be totally separated. With the monorail, then people will have to go up and down to cross the road. Have you considered how there can be a linkage between the two sides? You have not done any projection as to the number of visitors to the landscaped deck. Given that you're going to spend so much on the deck, naturally, we will have a lot of questions to ask, and we have a lot of questions unanswered. Perhaps we are not very familiar with the background of the design of Kai-Tak. Can you give us further information, please? Thank you, Chairman. Regarding the linkage between the landscaped deck and other developments, well, under our plan, there will be connection with the 6 commercial sites. But of course, the developers concerned will be responsible for building the connection. And we have reserved connection points in the design of the landscaped deck, just to enhance the connectivity of the deck and to attract more visitors. People can go directly from the commercial sites to this deck without having to go to the grade. What about the residential developments? As we all know, only residents of residential development can gain access to the buildings. So we believe it is not necessary to allow the public access into the residential developments. But for the commercial sites, we welcome the public to use the connection points. Mr. Chen Ji-chun, Chairman, you've tried to summarize the questions in the minds of members. All right, given that it's going to be so costly, we have to ask whether the project can be done more cheaply. But we don't have enough information in the paper to help us to make this assessment. While this is not the PWSC or the FC, if members have any queries in the total budget, can we be given a breakdown of the different different items, or can there be a package so that if we want things to be cheaper, we delete some of the items? And is the elevated landscaped deck really necessary? I have listened along, but I failed to hear any justification for the deck to be constructed. From what I've heard, I think the landscape deck may enhance the attraction or attractiveness of the 6 commercial sites. Is that the case? While the administration dares not to use the monorail in the plan, I'd like to ask. Now, I know the administration is determined, assuming that the green transport link is not monorail, will there be any impact on your elevated landscape deck? Which one from the administration? Mr. Chen's question is about that monorail and a breakdown of the project cost of $5.7 billion. Now, with member support, we intend to go to PWSC in mid-May, but I can't support you today. You told us that a breakdown wouldn't be available if we support you, but I can't support you today. We've just shown you a slide with a rough breakdown of the different elements. $5.7 billion, $1.2 billion will be spent on the noise barrier and the elevated landscape deck, and $1.7 billion on the underground supporting structure and other miscellaneous items. About $1 billion will be on contingency and consultancy fees, and $1.1 billion we have to provide for price adjustment, and the amount is up to $1 billion. at PWSC, we will have a more detailed breakdown for members' information. Mr. Chen asked about the functions of the elevated landscaped deck. It's not there just to serve the commercial sites. As said by the director, the EIA report requires noise barriers to be built. If we do not build that elevated landscaped deck, we have to build a noise barrier enclosure. We've just taken the opportunity to turn that into an open space for the public. As for the green transport link, we will incorporate the views of members and decide which is the best option. The design of the noise barrier is such that it is flexible enough to accommodate either an elevated or a grade green transport link. So $1.7 billion for that underground supporting structure. For contingency, we say that the administration likes to set aside 16% of the total budget as contingency. We always oppose it. Now there are $88 million. $0.8 billion against $5.7 billion. That is still roughly 16%. But the price adjustment is rather appalling. You don't have to answer me today. You can give me a paper in writing. I think this is going to happen to many public works. Is it because the construction costs are hard to project? Once the project spans over 3, 4, 5 years, you will reserve about 30% of the budget as for price adjustment, because you can ask to increase or to lower the price adjustment sum. So can you tell us how come you've arrived at such a big percentage? You may not be able to convince us, but at least we can get to hear the logic behind your practice, so that when we have another public project, we understand the concept or the logic behind. Thank you. The administration has a very stringent mechanism for estimating the price adjustment. For each project, we have a rough idea on the cash flow, and then we will follow STB's projected inflation rate from the FS&TB. So we have a regular mechanism for dealing with this item, and we did not lower the percentage for this project in particular. In our paper to the PWSC, we will have all the details as to how we have arrived at this amount. And what about the $0.8 billion for contingency? We have reserved about $400 million as contingency, and site staff, and also payment to consultants, and also environmental mitigation and monitoring measures. We've all put them together under one item. It's not that the contingency as much as $800 million. But for some items, if they encountered a lot of resistance, they could cut that consistency. Remember that $1 billion odd projects for the broadcasting house, new broadcasting house for RTHK, they cut the contingency provision. So the level of adjustment is so substantial that with the feeling that it's entirely arbitrary. And in your PWSC paper, please tell us the way to work out the contingency fee. And how is it related to the length of a project? My understanding is that the longer a project takes to complete, the more uncertain the price is. Of course, it can both go up and go down. Can you give us the upside and downside models? We know that for money unspent, you will not give it to the contractor. Money underspent will be put back to the kitty. But I hope in all funding applications, you can show us or follow the logic for the calculation. Yes, please give us the information. We'll discuss this internally. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. That government official told us that they had an internal mechanism. I'd like to know whether the mechanism has always been the same. Yes. Yes, the mechanism has been in place for quite some time. So even for projects that have suffered and suffer overrun, you've adopted the same model for the 9 major projects that have overspent their project. Well, for ordinary public works projects, we have this regular mechanism. So can you tell us why you're so confident that you can be accurate in your assumption in the future?
Because they have been using the same mechanism, and for Liantang, for the XRL terminus, they got the estimate wrong. Want to know whether any improvement has been made to the mechanism. I want to say that for individual projects, there are different causes for cost overrun. We do have a set of inflation factors to calculate inflation. All right, so there is a mechanism to calculate inflation, but then there may be deflation at times, and there may be no inflation at times. For example, if there is less demand because of fewer projects, then there is no inflation. Or if you need to make the payment in US dollars, and then if the US dollar is strong or if it is weak, then there is a difference. So delays do not necessarily mean an increase in cost. I don't quite understand what the member is trying to get at. Say if inflation is 15%, then if there is any delay, then you need to increase the expenditure by 15%. You have to look at the time of the cash flow. Because for MOD prices, the later the payment is made, the more expensive. But what if there is a deflation? Say if the price of copper or steel goes down, or if there are fewer projects going on, does it mean that the project cost will go down? If there is deflation, of course, we'll not have to spend the contingency. So it is not always true to say that if there is any delay to the project, then cost will go up. If there is a depression, if raw materials and the oil prices go down, then the cost of the project may also go down. That may be the case. So we always say that there are cost overruns because of delays, because we have too many projects going on at the same time, and because materials from the mainland are getting more and more expensive. So what is your question, Mr. Le? So I think that's how the mechanism works. Perhaps you can give an answer. Do you have anything to add? Mr. Chow. Hong Kong is a small economy, Chairman. And prices in Hong Kong are affected by many external factors. So that means even if there are delays to projects, there may not be any cost overrun. All right, I think we've finished the first round. Second round now, Helena Wong, Chen Kam Lam, and also Leung Kwok Hong. Anyone else? Because we've already overrun, I'll allow the 3 members to ask questions in the second round. 3 minutes, including replies. Ms. Wong. Chairman, this is a request, not a question. Enclosure 2, para 27. The need to increase office and housing supply in the Kai Tak development. The consultancy study has been completed, and I hope that electrical members can be given a copy of the study report. That's the first point. And then second, Kai Cheng Estate and Tak Long Estate. Now between these 2 estates, it is said here that these are completed projects, but then the 2 estates are separated and by a road, and we were told that there would be an LCSD park. I want to know why you are seeking funding for the area with no residents, and yet for this area with a population of 30,000 people, we have this site fenced up. The original design is that there will be benches and also green areas. In fact, I went there a few days ago, and many of the children's bicycles were sort of trapped by the wire mesh. I want to know when this promised park will be completed. Ms. Ying. For this park, there are 2 phases. For phase 1, the detailed design has been completed and the district council has been consulted. And so we are applying for funding now. I mean the area between Kai Cheng and Tak Long estates. I want the administration to give us the drawing and the plan for the park. Yes, this can be done. I want to know when construction works will start. I think I'll ask the departments concerned and provide members with a reply. It is said that the Trade and Industry Tower will be completed quite soon, and which departments will move into this new building. This building will mainly be used by the TID, but my understanding is that the Census Department will also be moving in. And what about the environmentally friendly linkage system? Will there be such a system? We're still having a study on the system. No decisions have been made yet. And concerning the report mentioned in para 27 of enclosure 2, can that be provided to members? Yes. Mr. Chen Kam Lam. Thank you. EFLS. I think the design of the FLS should be integrated with that of the elevated deck, because we may need to have bigger piles for the 2. And then pedestrian streets, you told Mr. Yip Kwok Him that they would be leisure walkways, but in fact there is a carriageway in between. Is it that people need to cross the road using the elevated deck? I don't think your pedestrian streets are going to really serve a lot of purpose. From the residential area, how can people go to the elevated deck? Chairman, as you are aware, the buildings there are over 10 stories tall. And there will be quite a lot of residents in the residential area. So why is it that you're providing good connections to the deck from the hotels and not from the residential blocks? That's not reasonable. All right, anything from the administration? Mr. Chairman, I think the member is right. As the member has pointed out, we need to make sure that the columns can provide sufficient loading if we are going to have the elevated deck as well as the EFLS. And then the pedestrian streets on the two sides, there will be a proper crossing facilities, and of course people can also use the deck. And then linkage from the residential area to the deck. We have to consider factors like cost effectiveness. Chairman, very simple. Before the administration goes to PWSC, it should give us the slide that was shown to us. This paper lacks information. No budget, no breakdown, and there are some drawings shown to us that are not annexed to the paper. And in one of the slides, the EFLS is shown, and I hope that when you go to PWSC, you can show everything on the plan. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, do you expect PWSC to approve the item with so little information? It is said here that there will be commercial sites, residential sites, and there will be the tourism node, and the tourism node will include commercial, hotel, and entertainment. This tourism node will be near to the sea. I don't think this tourism node will really benefit the public too much. So there will be a lot of facilities like parks. Are they intended for hotel users or the residents? So are you proposing to use public funds to make the site for commercial, hotel, and entertainment use more valuable? How can we support you if that's your proposal? I want to ask you who these facilities are for. I live in a public housing estate. For the leisure facilities, previously, before we had the link, they were used by PRH tenants as well as HOS residents, but now they are only available for use by HOS residents. So what is this tourism node? Is it for making money? What do you mean by commercial hotel and entertainment? Would there be a casino? What do you mean by entertainment? What do you mean by entertainment? What's the use? Tell me what's the use, or what the use is going to be. Yes, Chairman, let me say something about the tourism note. There will be tourism facilities, cultural and music facilities, and also outdoor dining areas. So residents will not be able to go there. This is for the people of Hong Kong. You mean rich Hong Kong people? I think time's up, Mr. Leong Kwok Hong. We have had sufficient discussion on this item, and I want to now conclude our discussion on this paper. So members have pointed out that there is insufficient information in this paper. So can I ask members whether they agree that the administration can proceed to seek funding support from the PWSC? Those in favor? Those against? 2?
Okay, 4 for and 2 against. So the paper will be submitted to the PWSC for discussion and examination. Chairman, you heard our views very clearly. For the green environmental friendly transport link and how it's going to integrate with the elevated landscape deck, there must be a clear account, because what we see from the plans is a separate system and it's going to take up road space. So at the PWSC meeting, you must give us a clear account. Dr. Low, I think the issue is clear. Many members have raised a number of issues, and the administration has undertaken to give us supplementary information. I hope that the information can be submitted to members as early as possible. Next item, Mr. Ip Kwok Him. Speakers off mic. Well, for matters of concern to us, I hope that such information can be given to us earlier. Don't wait until we ask you. This is not desirable, because such information will facilitate the making of a decision. Yes, those comments have been made more than once during the meeting. We go on to agenda item number 5, PW Works 45 CG district cooling system at the Kai Tak development. Please invite the administration to join us.
First
of all, let us welcome the administration team. We've all got the attendance list, and I think I can save time by skipping the introduction.
首先呢，就係即係因為上一個項目咧討論嘅時間就長。
We've overrun a little bit in discussing the first item, so my apologies, administration, for having kept you waiting.
因為咁咧，我即係先請政府嘅代表咧就呢個。
Can I invite the administration to briefly walk us through the paper? I know you have got a PowerPoint presentation. Due to time constraints, can you be as succinct as possible? Madam Ma. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members, for giving us the opportunity to brief you on the Phase 3 Package B of the district cooling system. 2 years ago, we came to the development panel to brief you on Phase 3A of the system. And the funding has been secured, and the progress is in progress as scheduled. I will give the floor to Mr. Zheng to brief you on the project. Yes, I'll spend about 10 minutes to brief you on the progress of the system and also the scope of works under Phase 3B. What is meant by district cooling system? For buildings using central air conditioning, usually there is a cooling system. Usually there is a central cooling plant, and through underground pipes the cooled water is distributed to the different stations of individual floors. So what are the benefits of such a system? It can save up to 35% and 25% compared with traditional air-cooled air conditioning system and individual water-cooled systems. And in Kai Tak, we can save 85 million kilowatt hours annual saving in electricity consumption and 59,500 tons and a reduction of CO2 emission. Since it's not required to install individual chillers and associated equipment, there will be less noise and vibration and heat. Since we don't need individual chillers, we can reduce the heat island effect. When rooftops are not required for such chillers, they can be used for other purposes. For instance, at the cruise terminal, a rooftop garden is provided, and we can be more adaptable to varying demand. This plan is the Kai Tak development mapped out by the planning department. It covers the old Kai Tak airport and the apron. It also covers the waterfront promenade of Kwun Tong and also the waterfront promenade near Kowloon City Pier. We need underground pipes for this system. Take Kai Tak development as example. We have to lay at least two 1 meter in diameter pipes. It's not easy in other districts. Whereas in Kai Tak, we know that there is an area of 1.73 square meters, so 1.73 million square meters. So we have decided to try out the system here. We have completed phases 1 and 2, and phase 3A is still in progress. The blue area is stage 1, and the area in green is covered by phase 2. We have a cooling pipe for the cruise terminal. And in the center of the runway, there is a plant at the north and southern part of the apron respectively. For phase 3A is done to tie in with Kai Tak development. It is here to serve the T&I Tower. At the southern plant, we have to we have to construct a subway underneath the Nala to link up with the Children's Hospital. For the lines in blue, all the pipes have been laid, and in early 2013, we completed the south plant and the north plants. And in 2013, we started to serve the cruise terminal. In May, we started to serve the shopping mall of Tak Long Estate and Kai Long Estate. And by the end of this year, we're going to serve the 2 primary schools. By the end of 2016, we will start to serve the Kai Tak Children's Hospital. So this is what Phase 3B will entail. We will have 3 contracts. The one in light purple are pipe laying contracts. This will link up with Kai Tak and Tokawan stations of the Sha Tin and Central Link. And to the south of the Children's Hospital, where there is a waterfront promenade, we also have pipes. And the yellow contract is for the Yen M contract, the Tokawan Estate, and also some meters and also equipment for the headquarters. The area in blue is a contract entrusted to the CE and DD. The areas in green will be done in the remaining works of the Kai Tak development. The total project cost is about $4.9455 billion in money of the day prices. The approved budget for phases 1, 2, and 3A was $3,145.9 million in MOD prices. This time round, we planning to seek $606.1 million in money of the day prices, and we plan to seek endorsement and funding approval from PWSC and FC in the second quarter to increase the approved budget estimate to $3,752 million in MOD prices. Phase 1 was completed in 2013, and Phase 2 completed in the third quarter of 2014. For Phase 3A, we obtained $1,284.1 million, and the project is in progress and is expected to be completed by end of 2017. For Phase 3B, we are seeking about $606.1 million. For the remaining project, it is estimated to cost $1,193 million in MOD prices, and we will seek money by phases in the next 2 years. So the pipeline contract and also the E&M contract had a tendering exercise earlier this year. For entrustment of contracts for Phase 3, it will be approved under PWP number 711CL. We have started to serve the users. We will charge on user pay principle. The cost of district services will be comparable to that of individual water-cooled air conditioning system using cooling towers, and we plan to recover costs in 30 years. The District Cooling Services Ordinance was passed by LegCo and enacted in March 2015. And the ordinance provides for the imposition of charges for the cooling system services and other matters, and the key tariff components include the capacity charging and consumption charge. Thank you. May I remind members that in accordance with ROP 83A, if members have a direct or indirect pecuniary interest in a particular item, please disclose the nature of interest before you speak on that subject. 6 members. Low Wai Kok, Yu Siu-wing, Albert Chen, 4 minutes each. Mr. Low Wai Kok. Thank you, Chairman. For those of us who are also members of the Bills Committee to scrutinize the District Cooling Services Bill, they should know the system well. Some of us went on a site visit to see the system. So we all understand the benefits the system can bring. The buildings there can spare the room for installing individual chillers and the EMN facilities. And the air conditioning costs of these tenants will be lower in the future. So this is really a win-win situation. So I would like to indicate my support for phase 3B of the system. And this system or this package has to go ahead because the basic infrastructure is already there. We must lay the pipes to serve new buildings and new facilities. The paper has set out the areas that will be served, including the EMST headquarters, the Shanti Station, Tokawan Station, and the Children's Hospital, so on and so forth. And the Children's Hospital will rely on this system. Or what? It appears that the Children's Hospital can benefit under phase 3B. Is that correct?
Then I think this phase 3 package B is all the more important. For the pipes, is it that they will be laid by the CEDD because the CEDD will have to carry out some road works? And then concerning E&M installations, I believe they will be taken care of by the EMSD, right? And the total amount is $606.1 million. So I want to know the ratio in terms of cost between the CEDD works and the E&M works. Yes, Chairman. For the Children's Hospital, the pipes are included under phase 3 package A. You can look at this slide. The blue areas on the works there will be entrusted to the CEDD and will be giving the CEDD about $180 million for the laying of the pipes. How much? $180 million. So the rest of the money will be for E&M installations and other pipes. The areas in purple. In front of the Children's Hospital, there will be a promenade. And in fact, we'll have to hand over the site to the ASD for the construction of a promenade. And we also have to have shorter pipes leading to Kai Tak Station and To Kwa Wan Station. Next, Mr. Yu Si Wing. I think the concept of a district cooling system is excellent. There can be energy efficiency. There can be many advantages. So we're told that you can achieve cost recovery within 3 decades. But according to the information you have, what is the lifespan of the facilities? You have to take into account wear and tear, depreciation. So can the facilities be used for 3 decades? And what if there is a major breakdown in the equipment or the facilities within the 3 decades? And what is the fallback position if some of the equipment breaks down? We do not want to see a blackout or rather a suspension of supply in the entire area. So are you assuming that all the residents and the government departments use the district cooling system? Is it that you anticipate cost recovery after 30 years on this basis, or on the basis of a certain utilization rate? And what is that utilization rate, please? Mrs. Ma, thank you. Let me say something about the cost recovery period of 30 years. And then EMSD can answer the questions about a breakdown in the equipment. The DCS comprises mainly two components. First, the cooling plants, and then second, the pipes. For the plants, the buildings, we believe they can be used for 50 years. And for the installations, we believe that their service life is about 3 decades. 3 decades is the target cost recovery period. And this is because the service life of most of the installations is 30 years. And then concerning the assumed utilization rate. For the 173 square meters, you mean 1.73 million square meters using district cooling? Yes, if all 1.73 million square meters use the DCS, then the cost recovery period will be 30 years. As to whether all buildings will use the DCS, now 35% of the buildings are government buildings. And of course, government buildings are expected to use the DCS. And then the hospitals will also use the DCS. As for the remaining 60%, in fact, electrical members have told us that we should, in the land sale conditions, require that there be connections to the DCS. And so the estimate of 100% utilization rate is reliable. And then EMSD can answer the questions on the breakdown of on what's going to happen if the equipment breaks down. Yes, thank you, Chairman. Now we have the northern plant and the southern plant. And there will be 28 units in total. So if one unit breaks down, we still have other units. And in fact, usually for a building, there are only 2 to 3 units, but we have a total of over 20. And then in each set of pipes, there is a big one and then a small one as fallback. And the reliability rate exceeds 99% according to overseas experience. Mr. Gary Chen, thank you. The DCS can help us achieve energy efficiency and reduce emissions. Phases 1 and 2 have been completed. In fact, they have been commissioned, and there is no reason why we shouldn't support phase 3. But I want to seek clarification on 2 points. First of all, Annex 2, unit cost 0.635 for all buildings and 0.71 for government buildings. But then other buildings 0.632. So I just want to know why. And then second, for phase 1 of the DCS, things have turned out well. There haven't been problems. So I want to know what problems you've encountered since the commissioning of Phase 1 last year. I understand that there will also be DCS in the future Northeast NT development, and also there will be DCS in the Hong Shui Kiu development. So, what are the merits and the problems associated with this district cooling system at the Kai Tak development? Yes, Chairman. First of all, the difference in unit cost for different types of buildings. I think my colleague can give members more information. For government buildings, they are office buildings, and then government premises include hospitals and other types of facilities. The longer the building needs to operate, the more district cooling it requires. Now, for example, hospital operates round the clock, so in fact that will be very cost effective as far as the unit cost is concerned. But then for government buildings, because they may not operate round the clock, and so you may think that the unit cost is not very impressive. Yes, Chairman, thank you. We haven't detected any operational or major operational problems, but of course we do have a working group to closely monitor the situation. In fact, we have 3 pipes, 2 pipes for the 2 directions of water flow, and 1 serving as fallback. And so if a pipe bursts, there will still be chilled water supplied to the buildings. I hope that we can be given progress reports on the operation of the DCS at the Kai Tak development every 6 months or every 12 months, because this is the first district cooling system, and I think information about this system can help us decide whether we're going to support district cooling systems for other new developments. Yes, I understand that you will be coming back for further funding, so please give us progress reports on the operation of the DCS at the Kai Tak development. Mr. Chair Hampan. Yes, the DCS is environmentally friendly, but as we all know, new equipment is excellent, but for old equipment, it's inefficient. The maintenance and repair costs are very high, and sometimes old equipment is not reparable. So after 30 years, can the system still operate, or is it that it has to be replaced? Who can give an answer, Mrs. Ma? Chairman, let me say something about old equipment and new equipment. The member is worried that sometimes old equipment is beyond repair. I think I'll ask the EMSD to give a reply. Sorry, I've forgotten your question. And what's going to happen after 30 years? And what is the anticipated maintenance and repair cost? Thank you for the reminder. That there is a capacity charge, and we hope to, through that charge, recover the maintenance and repair costs. So members need not be worried that the maintenance costs will keep going up. We've taken that factor into account. And so will not fail to recover our costs within the 30-year period because of escalating maintenance costs. We've already taken that into account. Yes, Chairman. For the units, we've hired a very experienced consultant to operate the units for us. In fact, this contractor operates similar units in Singapore. It has a lot of experience in such units. We do comply with international standards and also specifications laid down by the supplier. Now this system will have a service life of about 30 years. And what's going to happen after 30 years? Will we have to replace the entire system? The 30-year period represents the cost recovery period. Now for the buildings, they can last for 50 years maybe, and then the units, the average service life is 3 decades, and so when the units come to the end of their serviceable or usable life, we'll have to replace them one by one. And then some spare parts may only have a service life of 10 years or 20 years, and they will have to be replaced when the need arises. But we've taken that into account in calculating our repair and maintenance costs. So we may need to replace our units after 30 years. So at that time, will you have enough money from the capacity charge income to replace the units, or is it that you will have to try to find money to replace the units?
The hardware should be able to last for 50 years, and other facilities may be for 30 years. Towards the end of 30 years, we believe the charges collected should be able to pay for the hardware and also those facilities, and even for the maintenance costs. And after 30 years, of course, the south and north towers will still be around, and what will be the charging model, we will see by then how this can carry on or go on. And if the system is still in use, we can maintain it. That it won't be the case where come 30 years we have to build the whole system again. At least the north and south plants will still be in operation. All right, any more questions in the first round? If not, second round. We have one in the second round. Mr. Yu Siwing, 3 minutes for questions and answers. Thank you. I'd like to ask about the depreciation. So we're told that the depreciation period is 30 years, but then you will have sufficient funds to replace the system. But it's for machines, it's hard to say. Will you review the whole operation before 30 years is up? For instance, will you do it at 25 years old and then replace part of the system? If yes, it will be more comfortable. If not, we will feel that your plan is too absolute. And do you have enough will you have enough funds set aside to ensure that you have enough money to gradually replace the system? Thank you. Yes, we have applied for funding for this project by phases. And in future, whether we are talk about the procurement of facilities or construction, we will time with the program of the high-tech development. We will not buy everything and leave them idle in our plants. So for some components might only be purchased after a certain period of time. or maybe in 2017. So the depreciation period will not start from the day the system is up and running. So it will tie in with a date of procurement of the equipment. And the MSD has entrusted the operation of the system to a contractor, and if any components or parts have to be replaced, the contractor will do it for us. It's not that we just build the system and leave it alone. The contractor will keep an eye on it and take care of the necessary repair and maintenance. So the facilities will be installed gradually, and there will be a replacement of the aged spare parts by phases. Do you have any information, for instance, the number of towers or chillers to be built per year? Because you may adopt the same system for other districts, and we want to have an idea. Thank you. We may not be able to give you information on certain things. For instance, we have yet to start phase 3B. We do not have a fixed timetable as to when we will apply for funding from LegCo. So it all depends on the pace of development of Kai-Tak. Perhaps I should invite the MSD to answer. The installation of the plants. There are 18. There are 9 chiller plant, which chillers that are already installed, and for the remaining 3, they are being installed and they will be commissioned gradually according to our schedule. For the remaining chillers, they will be installed by phases depending on the phased commissioning of Kai-Tak. So there are over 20 units and they will be commissioned in phases. Mr. Chen Hanpeng, so you are going to spend about $5 million in this district on average. In order to cover costs, I think we have to receive about $13 million in charges every month in order to recover costs. I'd like to know whether this amount is on the high side. And secondly, I'd like to know about the maintenance costs as well. Of course, today we're only discussing the policy and not the financial aspect. But when you go to PwC, can you give us in detail the estimated maintenance cost and the estimated operating cost? I'm quite concerned about the maintenance aspect. A new system may not be too costly. However, the maintenance is the expensive part. Do you have any maintenance plan? Well, they're talking about 8 units installed. When all the GFA is commissioned, the total area will be 1.73 million square meters, and the charges will be divided into 2 parts. So I think they are concerned about whether the charges will be enough to cover maintenance cost. And do you have any maintenance plan, please? We have not got a breakdown of the budget. Can we provide it later? the operation and maintenance I've made reference to international standards and arrangements in similar systems. So we believe that we'll be able to maintain our system to a very reliable standard. And in phase 2, we employed a contractor to lay the pipes for us, to build the plants for us, and he's also responsible for maintenance. So we will supply the breakdown figures later. Yes, please give us supplementary information later. I suggest that we end the discussion of this item now. Do members agree that the administration can submit a funding application to the PWSC for this item? Okay, members are supportive. Okay, then the paper will be submitted to the PWSC. Thank you. Next, item 6. Ground decontamination works at the site of ex-Kennedy Town incineration plant or abattoir and adjoining area. Please invite the administration to join us now. Let me welcome government officials for the attendance list. Please refer to the list tabled. Administration, can you please first walk us through the paper? Mr. Ma. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'll try to be as succinct as possible. This paper seeks member support for the ground decontamination works. It is supposed to be in item number 570CL1. We plan to carry out decontamination after demolition. However, to tie in with the works program of the MTRC works of the underline extension, we had to wait until they are done with the works area. Now their project is more or less completed, and we believe the site can be handed back to the administration for decontamination quite soon. So we would like to start and complete decontamination works ASAP so that we can have a pollution-free site for the community. According to a EIA report and site investigation, the ex-Kennedy Town incineration plant or abattoir and adjoining area is contaminated. There are heavy metals and also hydrocarbons found. These are quite common contaminants, and the technology to deal with such contaminants is very mature, and since the area affected is quite extensive, we will explain to you. First, the contaminated soil is up to a depth of 6 meters, and at the deepest site is 30 meters, or equivalent to 4 stories. And 110,000 cubic meters of soil has been contaminated, equivalent to a few swimming pools. However, they are not a very special contaminants. We have prior experience of dealing with such contaminated soil. It's just that the area is extensive. We need more time to deal with it. First, we have to carry out decontamination, and temporary car parking spaces and temporary RCPs will be built there. The cost will be $1,111.9 million in money of the day, prices, and please refer to parent 9 for the financial implications. During works, we will carry out mitigation measures to minimize the impact on users and also nearby residents. With member support, we're going to seek funding from the PWSC and FC. If everything goes smoothly, we will start works in end 2015 for completion in 2020. So that's a brief introduction to the paper. Under ROP 83A, if members have pecuniary direct or indirect pecuniary interest to any item under discussion, the member is required to disclose the nature of the interest before speaking. Mr. Gary Chen, 4 minutes. Questions and answers included. Thank you. The Undersecretary said that the cost was as much as $1,111.9 million. When the relevant district council was briefed 2 years ago, the estimated cost was just around $5 billion or $500 billion. How come the budget has doubled in 2 years' time? And this area is prone to a typhoon, and in the coming wet or rainy season, will the contaminated soil and leachate affect site runoff affect the nearby area, and the pollutants include heavy metal. Will this pollute our sea as well?
And then second, there are 5 important trees there. According to your assessment, all 5 cannot be transplanted. Did you do the assessment yourself? Will you be consulting outside experts? Because I know that one of them is Aquilaria sinensis. And then I want to say that the usual practice is to set up liaison groups for such projects, and so there will be communication with district councillors, residents. I want to know whether liaison groups will be set up for this project. Mr. Ma, I want to say something about escalating costs. We went to the district council in September 2012, and we gave the sum 630 million, and then September 2014, 710 million. And look at our latest estimate, 810 million. So an increase of 100 million, and there are 3 causes. First, the amount of excavation is more than originally expected, and that accounts for about 40% of the increase. In other words, about $40 million. And then second, we need to treat more soil, and also the time required will be increased from about 6 years to 7 years, and 30% of the cost increase is due to this reason. And then the residents and district councillors have asked us to do more in respect of environmental mitigation measures, and this accounts for about 30% of the cost increase. And that is why the cost estimate has gone up. And then I'll invite Mr. Mong to answer the remaining questions. And finally, on liaison groups, yes, a community liaison group will be set up to step up liaison with the residents. We do value the input from the residents. Yes, Mr. Mong. Thank you. Chairman, to answer Mr. Chen's question. Mr. Chen is worried that there may be a lot of dust if there is strong wind or if there is a typhoon. Now, in the contract, we will require the contractor to do water spraying very frequently, and that will help reduce or reduce any possible dust nuisance. And for exposed surfaces, they have to be covered by plastic sheets or canvas sheets. We understand that the wind can be very strong at that location. So we do require the contractor to place canvas sheets securely above exposed surfaces. Then Mr. Chan asked about the 5 important trees. In fact, we've hired a consultant to look at the 5 trees. The consultant has under it some tree experts. We are told that the trees have poor form and health, so they are in poor conditions. And if they are to be transplanted, the survival rate is going to be very low. Because time is running out. So in other words, you've hired an independent consultant to inspect the trees, but according to Annex 3, the trees were assessed and inspected by the LCSD only. And what if it rains? You talked about canvas sheets, but then we have seen leachate coming out from landfills. So what's going to happen if it rains? Can you be concise? So there will be interceptors along the perimeter of the site. So the water within the site will not leak out. There will be interceptors, and the water will be treated before it is emitted. Because we do not want nearby areas to be polluted by the water from the site. And then were the trees assessed by independent consultants? Yes, but according to Mr. Chan, only the LCSD has assessed the trees. Now, but according to the enclosure, it says department to provide expert advice to Lands Department LCSD. We asked the consultant to assess the trees, and then we approached the LCSD and the Development Bureau Tree Management Office for further advice. So can you tell us when the assessment was done by the consultants? All right, next, Mr. Wong Kwok Heng. Chairman, I want to know what's going to happen after site formation. What development will take place on this site, please? Under Secretary. We have carried out a review on the land use in Kennedy Town. We have a planning proposal. So there will be a waterfront park, there will be a school, and there will be a car park, as well as private residential developments. Mr. Wong. So in other words, there will be a school, there will be private residential developments, there will be a car park, so there will be comprehensive development. Yes, correct. I welcome that idea. But this planning proposal isn't even mentioned in the paper. So I think you need to tell us your planning intention when you go to FC. We only know that there will be a temporary car park and there will be a temporary RCP. But we want to know what's going to happen after the contamination and site formation. Chairman, I am an elected member representing Hong Kong Island. I support the planning intention. Next, I want to ask this question. And then for the incinerator and the abattoir, why is it that the soil on the site has been so heavily polluted? The abattoir was closed quite a long time ago. And why is it that the soil is so polluted? Yes, Mr. Ma. I think I will invite Mr. Mong to tell members more about the source of pollution. And then for the land use review for Kennedy Town, we went to the Central and Western District Council in March, and we will in the near future brief members on the planning intention for land in Kennedy Town. Mr. Mong. Chairman, there are mainly two pollutants. First, hydrocarbons. Second, heavy metals. These are the two main and the main sources of pollution are the incineration plant and the abattoir. And as you know, the incineration plant and abattoir operated with a lot of plants and machinery, and a lot of machinery oil was used, and the oil went underground, and as a result we have this state of pollution. Yes, thank you for your explanation. You know, when we are there, we can smell that odor. In fact, we don't know what the odor is. Now we know the source of this odor. There must be thorough decontamination so that there will no longer be that odor, which is very suffocating. And in future there will be residential developments and other developments on the site, and such developments will benefit Hong Kong people. Mr. Yu Si Wing, I live in the Western District. I know the area quite well. The government has told us that there will be measures to minimize dust nuisance. So exposed surfaces will be covered by canvas sheets. There will be very frequent water spraying. But then, how can you make sure that a contractor will do all these? In winter, the northerly wind can be very strong. And so if there is no water spraying, then there will be dust everywhere. And the dust nuisance can be very serious. I want to say that if there is no water spraying for a day or even half a day, then the dust nuisance will be very serious. So how can you allay the concerns of the nearby residents? How can you make sure that the dust nuisance can really be minimized? And then the activated carbon filters can be rather noisy. You say here that you're going to adopt quieter equipment. What is the decibel level, please? How can you make sure that the residents nearby will not be subject to excessive noise nuisance? Mr. Ma. Chairman, we are very concerned about the adverse impact on nearby residents. We've heard the residents' worries. The district council has said that we need to provide a channel for the residents to reflect the problems that they have detected. That's why we have proposed to set up a community liaison group comprising district councillors and resident representatives. We'll be working very closely with district councillors and the residents, and we'll make sure that the views of the residents can be reflected to the contractor very promptly. And then Mr. Mong can say something about the activated carbon filter. Chairman, we have a team to supervise the performance of the contractor. And I understand that the contractor will put in place an environmental monitoring team to monitor the implementation of the mitigation measures.
And during construction, we'll have a liaison group set up. We will invite different parties to join the liaison group, including representatives from residential developments nearby. If anyone has any views, they are welcome to raise them. What about noise? Noise. We will use not so noisy plant and equipment. For instance, we have generators. In the past, we used ordinary generators, but now we have labels by EPD specifying that it is a low noise generator. What about the level of decibel? Well, different plants have a different level of noise, but will you cap it at a certain level? Because if you say that it used to be 100 decibel, but now it will be 90, is meaningless. You will still affect the residents. In the EIA report, there was a noise impact assessment during construction or decontamination. Yes, some generators may generate 120 or 130 decibels. For the not so noisy generators, and they may be 10 to 20 decibels lower, and that is quite substantial. In addition to the use of not so noisy generators, there may be mobile noise barrier or noise mufflers, so that when all these measures are put in place, the noise to the nearest residential developments will comply with EPD requirements. I think you have to tell us the level of noise so that we can be more comfortable. You told us that near residential developments, the noise level might comply with EPD requirements, but there may be passers-by, and when you are dealing with contaminated soil, we are all concerned because people can be affected. So although time's up for the member, but I will allow you time to tell us how you are going to tackle the problem. Will the contaminated soil be decontaminated at site for backfilling? Can you explain to us? The EBD has got standards for construction noise. On street, it must not be over 70 decibel. Near schools, if it is during exam time, it has to be 5 decibels lower. So we believe that by implementing all the noise mitigation measures, they'll be able to comply with EPD requirements. And if the contaminated soil is treated elsewhere, or if it is backfilled elsewhere, these are different ways of handling the soil. Can you tell us how you're going to deal with the contaminated soil? Yes. Because this is a construction source, I mean this is a contamination source, I think it is best if the soil can be treated here. We will consider in situ treatment. But of course, you understand why it is going to take us so long, because space is limited in Hong Kong. But technically speaking, we should be able to do it, and we should be able to control the contamination to a lowest level. And the principle is we are not going to bring the contaminant to elsewhere. It will be in situ treatment. Thank you. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I believe none of the engineers are present share my personal experience, because I'm a few years older. In 1973, as a student of engineering, I was an intern at the abattoir and incineration plant at Kennedy Town. Why was there contamination? Because back then the sense, the awareness for environmental protection was very low. The incineration plant gave off black smoke every day. The fish was particularly fat, but no one dared to eat it because effluent was directly discharged from the abattoir into the sea there. 4 decades down the road, now people have a heightened sense of environmental protection. For all public works, environmental implications is must. So this shows that time has progressed, society has progressed. So I really support this program. But this is not until today I know that the contaminated soil has not been dealt with after so many years, because it's been 20 years since the abattoir and the incineration plant were decommissioned. So it's 2015 and the administration is asking for money for contamination works, which is long overdue. Anyway, better late than never. Backfilling of treated soil is a preferred approach, because if you want to find another site for treatment, and if you move the soil to another place and move back for backfilling, that will generate even more problems. So it is best that the contaminated soil is treated in situ. Some members asked about the monitoring and measures. Of course, I share their concern, but I will pursue no further, because I believe government officials should be well prepared to tackle this problem. The important thing is not to cause any nuisance to the local residents. This site is rather precious. It is near the harbour front, and if the soil, the is properly decontaminated, it would be a good place for housing. So the project is worthy of our support. I have no further questions. I just want works to start ASAP and be done properly. Mr. Yu Siwing, 3 minutes. Second round. Yes, I would like to ask about the monitoring mechanism. We're told that a liaison committee will be set up together with the district council to enhance communication. But if you only take action after something has happened, this is too late. You would at most ask the contractor to apologize, but by then something has already happened. The construction time is rather long. I'd like to know whether there is any penalty mechanism. That is, you set standards regardless of measures. You're going to take so long as you have exceeded these levels, you will be fined. Because if you talk about the measures, it is useless. They can talk to you about numerous measures, but you can't have somebody there to watch over them all the time. And by the time there is an incident that is too late, and there are so many residential developments nearby, and if the air is polluted, then it is too late. You must have a mechanism to check, say, the level of RSP, and also the possibility of site runoff, so on and so forth. Can you include all this in your tendering documents so that once they don't comply with the indicators, they'll be fined? And the cost is so high. I like to know whether it is just an ordinary tender or are there reasons for this level of provision. I'll have a go first, and Mr. Mong will talk to you about the special provisions in the contract. Now, we will take the initiative to monitor the situation. We don't wait until something has happened. We have site staff. We will have environmental team to monitor the environmental situation. As for the liaison team, I hope that it will be a setup to take the initiative to improve the situation so that there can be communication and improvements. Because this paper is for the development panel, it is a little bit brief, but at the PWSC we will have information on cash flow to let members understand. Our mechanism is such that we will adjust the price year on year according to some milestones. The FSTB will estimate the extent of price adjustment for every year, and then we will work out the budget according to such information. You may find the budget here a bit high. It's because the project will last 7 years. By the time the contract is completed, it will be about 9 years. And you can see that we do not have a lot of demolition. The most expensive part is excavation and treatment of contaminated soil. And the peak of these two steps would happen in 2021, which is quite far away, and that's why the costs will be much higher than. Madam Chang Yun Han, first time, 4 minutes. Thank you. First, I support this project. I don't know how you are going to proceed. You know, in Kowloon, we have the Kai Tak Nala. Downstream, that is near the airport, the Nala is particularly odorous, and the government has done a lot by means of sedimentation to decontaminate the water. And at the outlet of Kai Tak, the administration is doing further decontamination works, but the situation is hardly acceptable. We gave some suggestions to Mr. Ying. Of course, we support decontamination, but how will the site be used after that? We know the place well. Those who live on Hong Kong Island know the place well. So I'd like to know what will be the procedures. How will it be different from the contamination works for Kai Tak River, Kai Tak Nala, and what will be the future use of this site? Well, they spent more than 10 years on Kai Tak Nala. Now they are working on the outlet of Kai Tak Nala. I'll not go into details. I have already made suggestions to Mr. Ying. I said I will for sure follow up because professionals have devoted a lot of efforts into the Kai Tak Nala. We don't want it to be turned to something else, and also the site of the use of the site. I know you need the site for further development, but I would like to know how you are going to decontaminate. Of course, this site is different from Kai Tak Nala. This is immediately in front of the harbour. Under Secretary. Thank you, Madam Chen, for your questions. Well, the contaminants here are mainly heavy metals and hydrocarbons. And that's very similar to the Kai Tak Nala. No, it's different. Kai Tak Nala is an operating river with new pollutants going in, whereas for the contaminants here, they came from the abattoir and incineration plant, which are no longer in operation. So the decontamination works will resolve the problem in one go. And as for future land use, we are now carrying out a review of land use of Kennedy Town. We've spent 3 years. We've briefed the Central Western District Council on our future planning. We hope we'll be able to brief you on our suggestions later.
Along the seaside, we plan to provide a spacious promenade. I believe the residents will welcome that. There will be a promenade, and then there will be a school, and then there will be a public transport interchange, a car park, and above these there will be some residential development. So it's going to be a mixed use. How big is the site? About 3 hectares. But then for the land review, it covers nearby areas and other areas as well. But then for this site, 3 hectares with a temporary park and public car park. Right, Mr. Kwok Him, first round, 4 minutes including replies. Chairman, I support the decontamination works. There used to be an abattoir and an incineration plant. And I understand that when the abattoir was decommissioned, some decontamination was carried out. I remember at the time there was scaffolding and in fact there was also liaison with the Kai Fongs. And this time, of course, you need to continue to liaise with the residents. So why is it that you didn't carry out all the decontamination works at that time? And second, are you going to enclose that area? Because we're worried that a lot of pollution may be caused to the nearby areas. Mr. Ma. Yes, thank you, Chairman. In fact, we had wanted to carry out all the decontamination works after the decommissioning works, but at that time, the WIL had to be constructed, and we wanted to see the early completion of the WIL so as to alleviate traffic congestion in the western part of Hong Kong Island. And this is the only biggest site in the Sai Ying Pun Kennedy Town area for use as the WIL works site. And so the surface was covered, the ground was covered, and the site was used as or has been used as the works area by the MTRCL, but then the WIL has been completed, and so we have immediately decided to carry out the decontamination works, and that's why we've got this paper for members. Yes, we understand that the district councillors also want us to communicate better with residents, and that's why there will be this community liaison group. And then as to whether we should enclose the area, in other words, can we erect something like a tent there? But then I want to say that the contamination goes down to 4 stories underground. So we'll need to do go deep down underground, and when we have to do such piling, then that's going to be very time consuming, and so we're going to do it in phases. We're not going to erect a tent-like structure there to enclose the site. Now there is still some time left. 3 members, or 3 minutes rather. Mr. Mong, can you give more information to Mr. Yu? Yes, I thank Mr. Yu for his question, Chairman. Concerning monitoring, we do have environmental monitoring, including water quality, air quality, and so on and so forth. We will try to secure very accurate data, and as I have said, the contractor has got in place an environmental monitoring team, and we also have resident engineers to monitor the implementation of the mitigation measures. If the performance of the contractor is substandard, then action can be taken against it. In fact, we appraise the performance of the contractor on a quarterly basis. And the contractor's performance will be taken into account when it bids for future government contracts. Any penalties, fines, or what? We pay the contractor based on the amount of work that's done. If there is any delay to the works, then we may make some deductions. And what if the contractor doesn't do a good job? concerning the implementation of the mitigation measures. If they can't achieve the expected level of performance, then they won't be able to get the payment. But then, is there anything that can deter the contractor from performing in a substandard manner? For example, requiring the contractor to give compensation or terminating the contractor's contract, because you've already called tender. We haven't called tender yet, so perhaps members can tell us what we should do. For example, we can require the contractor to carry out remedial measures. We still have room to consider these measures. Because the contractor may not implement the mitigation measures diligently, so then it should be a mechanism to punish the contractor if it doesn't perform well. Mr. Pohim, 3 minutes, because last time dioxin was discovered. This time I think you don't expect to find dioxin, but you're going to go deep underground. What will happen if you really discover dioxin? Mr. Mong. We're going to do a lot of site investigation, and in fact we have 100 to 200 boreholes. We've also taken many soil samples for testing, and we haven't detected dioxin so far. Dioxin was dealt with when the superstructure was demolished. But what if you detect dioxin in the process of the contamination? Then how are you going to deal with the problem? We have an on-site team of engineers, Chairman. And so during the excavation works, we will take samples, soil samples for testing. And so we'll put in place suitable measures if dioxin is detected. Will you stop the works and make sure that there will be proper measures in place to treat the dioxin? The kaifongs are concerned. Before we carry out excavation works, we always submit soil samples for testing. We need to ascertain the extent of the pollution before we do the excavation. So we will know what contaminants there are. And if we discover contaminants like dioxin, we will take appropriate action. In fact, dioxin is mainly found in incinerators. When the incinerator was demolished, the dioxin was dealt with. So every time before we carry out excavation, we will submit soil samples for testing to ascertain the extent of contamination. Our resident engineers and our consultants will take appropriate action if dioxin is really discovered. Right, so do members agree that this item should go to the PWSC? All right, so members have expressed support. All right, AOB. No AOB, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for attending the meeting.